I have to ask, I mean, I'm Catholic, you're evangelical. I think that's how you might term or call yourself. Were you familiar with Aquinas? Have you read much of him? Did you ever read what he had to say about Muhammad?
I'd read his comments before, but yeah, my background's in philosophy. I wasn't a medieval guy, but everyone's going to come across Aquinas in some ways. And so my main focus was on what's called the Bayesian argument from evil. So it's like the most modern developed form of the argument from evil. So basically the argument that, the kinds and degree and variety of evil and suffering we have in the world is evidence against the existence of God. And different philosophers formulate that in different ways. And sort of the latest edition of the argument is a kind of Bayesian argument. And it was cool because those philosophers, even though they're using the argument, they said that all previous versions of the argument failed. So they were acknowledging that those earlier versions of the argument failed, and they were saying they had the argument. So I kind of focused on that. But even on an issue like this, even in the problem of evil, there's a disagreement among Christian philosophers and theologians. The dispute is don't want to go too far into it because it's kind of confusing, but it's basically it's called theistic personalism versus classical theism. And they view Aquinas as sort of the champion of classical theism. But today, most people would fall, according to this theory, most people would fall into the theistic personalist camp, meaning that we kind of view God as a person. And keep in mind, we're not talking about the persons of the Trinity or something. It's God is kind of like us, but much bigger, much more powerful, and so that's how we're thinking of him. And so the claim of people who are using this in the field of the problem of evil is that if you're thinking of God as like a really powerful person, you're almost thinking of him as like a superhero, and therefore it makes sense when you're dealing with the problem of evil to think, well, why doesn't God sort of swoop in and fix this? Whereas the classical theists are thinking of God more as like the ultimate source of being that underlies everything else and upholds everything in existence. They're kind of not thinking of him as like a person who's sitting up in the clouds or something like that. And so studied Aquinas there, and then everyone who takes introduction to philosophy usually looks through the 5 ways and stuff. So basically on a couple of apologetics issues, and then for that issue, the classical theist and theistic personalist distinction, studied Aquinas. But yeah, other than that, I wasn't really a medieval kind of guy. I was more modern, like Hume and Descartes, and then all the way up to contemporary.
Thank you for watching this clip. You can click here to watch the full episode. And I want to say a big thanks to our sponsors and to our amazing patrons for making all of this possible. Please do us a favor before you go. Click that subscribe button and then the bell. And that way YouTube will be forced to let you know every time we put out a new episode.